My name is Rami, and I am 33 years old. I had just won $18.7 million in the state lottery, and nobody, not even my mother, knew. 2 weeks after cashing in the ticket, I stood in my brother's garage, drenched in oil, after he refused to loan me $200 to fix my car. He told me I was a burden and that I should start contributing instead of always needing help. I nodded. Smiled. But inside, something exploded, something ugly. I didn't just win the lottery. I had been testing them. All of them. And they failed, so badly. The betrayal wasn't just cold, it was calculated. What happened next tore apart our entire bloodline. Because when I finally told the truth, they tried to take everything from me. Before I continue, tell me your country and the time right now. I stood in Jared's garage, the air thick with gasoline and disappointment. My hands were stained with grease, my shirt clinging to my back from the late summer heat. My car had coughed its last breath a mile from his place. I'd pushed it the rest of the way, like a beggar dragging a coffin. $200, Jared, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll pay you back next Friday. He looked up from his bench, wrench in hand, eyes narrowed like I'd just asked him to sell a kidney. You still jobless? He asked, spitting into a dirty rag. Yeah, but... Then how the hell are you gonna pay me back? His words stung more than I expected. He knew I was struggling. He knew things had been hard since Dad died. And still, he twisted the knife. I tried to laugh it off. It's not like I'm asking for 10 grand. He smirked. No, but you've got a habit, don't you? Asking. Behind him, 2 of his friends chuckled. One of them, Brian, muttered something about leeches. I caught the word. Pretended not to. My jaw clenched so hard my molars ached. You always show up when you need something, Rami, Jared said. When's the last time you came around just to check in? When Dad was in the hospital, I snapped before I could stop myself. Silence. The kind that slices. Jared wiped his hands, walked toward me, and for a second, I thought he might say something different. Something brotherly. Instead, he pulled out his wallet. Counted out a 20. You can take a bus, he said, holding it out like an insult. I stared at the bill. Then at him. Then back at the car. I didn't take the money. Instead, I smiled. Walked over to the toolbox. Pulled out a screwdriver. Looked around the garage, my eyes skimming every greasy part, every unpaid favor I'd helped with over the years. You know, I said slowly, Dad always said family's supposed to be your safe place. Jared scoffed. Yeah, well, Dad's not here anymore. I turned and walked out. My heart pounding, fists clenched, mind racing. The sun hit me like a slap. I stepped into the light and made a vow. They thought I was broke. They thought I was desperate. They had no idea I had $18 million sitting in a hidden trust, and that this was just the first test. The first crack in their masks. And the cracks were spreading fast. I showed up at my mother's place that same evening, dusty and tired, still pretending to be the man they all thought I was, a broke, beaten-down disappointment. She opened the door with her usual forced smile, the one she used when she wasn't sure whether to hug me or brace herself for bad news. Rami, she said, stepping aside. You look rough. I gave a sheepish grin. Been a long day. Inside, the house looked different. Cleaner. Brighter. The kind of clean that cost money. New curtains. A flat-screen TV. And around her neck, something that made my stomach twist, a sparkling diamond pendant. It wasn't hers before. You were decorating? I asked casually, motioning toward the upgrades. Oh, Jared's been helping out, she said, brushing it off. Said the house needed a little love. Of course he had. I sat down and got straight to it. I hate asking, but I'm behind on rent. Just until I get some things sorted, $500 would really help. Her face stiffened. Rami. I can't keep bailing you out. You're not a kid anymore. I nodded slowly, pretending to understand, but my chest burned. The same woman who once sold her jewelry to pay Jared's first DUI fine was now telling me to handle things alone. I'm not asking for a handout, I said quietly. You need to learn responsibility, she replied, crossing her arms. Maybe this will push you to finally get your life together. I blinked, holding her gaze. The words hit harder than I expected. So this is who I was to her now? A lesson? I stood up, pretending to let it go, and hugged her. It's okay. You're right, I whispered, gently sliding a small recording device into the corner of her bookshelf. Thanks for the reality check. I walked out with a smile on my face and a war forming in my heart. I wasn't looking for money. I was looking for proof. And she gave it to me. The woman who gave me life had already sold me out to the son she favored. But the real test was still coming. Because tomorrow night, I would invite them all to dinner. And they wouldn't know it yet, but they were walking straight into their own unraveling. The restaurant was cozy, intimate, even. I chose it on purpose. A family-run Mediterranean place, tucked away in the suburbs, the kind of spot that made people drop their guard. I booked a private room. Told them it was for something special. My mother came, draped in pearls. Jared arrived late, laughing into his phone. My sister Rachel brought her fiancé, Tom, the kind of man who wouldn't open a door unless a camera was rolling. I stood when they came in. Smiled like I hadn't been humiliated, dismissed, and gaslighted by all of them in the past week. We ordered wine. Appetizers. They joked about politics, their favorite shows, Jared's new side hustle. I listened, nodding along. Then I excused myself to the bathroom. Only I didn't go to the bathroom. I walked into the hallway and slipped into the closet next to the server station. Inside, I'd hidden a small wireless audio receiver, tapped into the mic I'd discreetly placed under the centerpiece of our dinner table an hour before they arrived. The moment I closed the door, I heard my sister's voice. He's probably going to ask for money again. Tom laughed. If he does, I swear, I'll walk out. Why does he always look like he hasn't showered in a week? Jared muttered. What does he do all day? He's Dad's charity case, my mother said, not even hesitating. Always has been. The world tilted beneath my feet. Dad's charity case. Not her son. Not family. Just a burden, a project, a stain they couldn't scrub off their shiny legacy. Then Jared said something that made my blood run cold. I've been talking to a few people. If he spirals again, we might have grounds for a psych evaluation. It's easier if he's not involved when we finally go after Dad's land. I froze. They were planning to have me declared mentally unstable. That land wasn't theirs to take. It was our father's. But apparently, I wasn't included in that equation anymore. I left the closet. Smoothed out my shirt. Walked back to the table like nothing happened. They looked up at me, feigning warmth. I smiled and placed a small dessert box on the table. Just a little gift, I said, sitting down. For all the support you've shown me. They clapped, unknowing. Jared reached for it first. They didn't notice the flicker in my eyes. Because the game had just changed. And none of them were ready for what I was about to do. It happened on a Tuesday. I'd just walked out of a corner gas station, scratching the back of my neck, irritated from a job interview that ended with "we'll let you know." I wasn't even going to buy a ticket, I'd stopped to grab a bottle of water. But something pulled me toward that dusty roll of scratch-offs by the register. A $10 power jackpot slip. I scratched it in the parking lot, leaning against the hood of my dead car. The moment I saw the numbers, I froze. I checked again. Then again. I sat down on the curb, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out traffic. I pulled up the website, double-checked the draw. $18.7 million. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I went absolutely still. Because deep down, I knew I had a choice to make, and I made it right there on that curb. I wasn't going to tell anyone. Not Jared. Not Mom. Not Rachel. Especially not Rachel. Instead, I drove to the lottery office the next morning in a rental car I paid for with borrowed cash. I wore sunglasses and signed the back of the ticket with my middle name, Elias. When the woman behind the glass counter confirmed the win, I felt a strange calm wash over me. Like I'd been handed not money, but power. I declined the press. Took the lump sum. After taxes and fees, I walked away with $12.4 million. And I disappeared, on paper. I set up a trust fund under an LLC. Used proxies. A lawyer who specialized in privacy law. A financial advisor who'd handled celebrity accounts. I wasn't just hiding the money. I was building a fortress. Back at home, I went back to normal. Drove the same beat-up car. Ate leftovers. Picked up odd jobs and played the part of the desperate, dependent brother. I didn't want them to know. I wanted to see who they really were without the scent of wealth in the air. And one by one, they showed me. The rejections. The insults. The betrayals. They thought I was dirt, easy to bury. But I was watching. Recording. Documenting. Every slight. Every denial. Every cruel smirk behind fake sympathy. This wasn't about money anymore. This was war. And the jackpot wasn't just a windfall. It was a weapon. One I was about to aim right at their throats. For the next 4 weeks, I lived 2 lives. By day, I was the loser. The poor brother who still borrowed Mom's Wi-Fi and drove a car that coughed smoke every morning. I let them pity me, sneer at me, give me lectures about getting my act together. By night, I was something else entirely. I wore designer clothes in cities where they'd never go. I dined in rooftop lounges under a different name. I had a penthouse 2 hours away, fully paid off, furnished by an interior designer I never met in person. Nobody knew. The trust one created, RE Holdings, was the shell. I had full control over every cent, but no paper trail that led to Rami. The money moved through layers, shell companies, offshore transfers, digital wallets. You'd have to be a forensic accountant on meth to follow it. But what I cared about even more than hiding my wealth, was exposing theirs. I started tracking every little financial move my family made. Jared was funneling money from our father's old estate business into a new venture, hiding it from taxes. He used Mom's name on certain property deeds. Rachel? She was drowning in debt, but posted like she was rich. I found credit card lawsuits. Car loans co-signed by Tom's uncle. They looked polished, but their foundations were cracked. I made a folder. Labeled it evidence. Inside, bank statements I acquired legally through a lawyer's subpoena request for an anonymous trust. I had cameras. Audio recordings. Screenshots. Documents. Everything I needed to bring down the empire they'd built on lies and legal loopholes. One night, as I was uploading a file, my phone lit up. Group call, fam only skull. I didn't answer. But I recorded it. And what I heard made my stomach twist. Jared, I don't care if he's broke or not. He's dead weight. We should have pushed for power of attorney when Dad was sick. Mom, I told you, but you didn't want the fight. Rachel, there's still time. If he spirals again, we could get him in for a psych eval. All we need is a paper trail. Something to prove instability. Tom, I know a guy who can help. For a price. They were planning to erase me. Legally. Turn me into a non-person. But what they didn't know. I'd already filed a legal request for access to Dad's sealed will. And when I got the envelope in the mail, it didn't just contain a will. It contained the first nail in their coffin. I held the envelope like it was a grenade. Official. Heavy. Marked confidential, attorney delivery only. It had taken weeks of filings and silent moves to even get to this point. My father's trust had always been a mystery, sealed after his death, controlled by Jared, and locked away with no explanation. I was told, like everything else, you wouldn't understand the legal stuff. But now I had it. My hands trembled as I peeled it open. Inside, a scanned copy of my father's original will, dated 6 months before his sudden stroke. It was clear. Unambiguous. And brutal. He left everything to me. Not just the house. Not just the business. Everything. The language was sharp. To my son Rami Elias, I entrust full ownership and stewardship of my estate, as he alone has the empathy and integrity required to carry it forward. There was nothing for Jared. Nothing for Rachel. And nothing for my mother. I sat down. Shaking. Dad had known. He'd known what they were like. He must have seen the way they moved in shadows, carving up his legacy before the dirt had even settled on his grave. Maybe he tried to warn me. Maybe I was too lost in my own bitterness to hear it. But they'd hidden this. Illegally. Because the copy they did file with the court, the one they had waved in my face when I asked questions after the funeral, was a newer version. A fake. Drafted after his death with forged signatures, notarized by one of Jared's golf buddies. I called the law office that handled the original will. The attorney, a tired-sounding man named Monroe, confirmed everything. Yes, he said. Your father delivered that will personally. He was very specific. He said if anything happened to him suddenly, he wanted that version honored. It should have been executed. I don't know why it wasn't. But I did. Jared had pulled it. My mother had co-signed statements claiming I was unstable, unreliable, and estranged. They had cut me out with precision. Surgical greed. I asked Monroe for an official statement. He hesitated. Mr. Elias, this could become a very public conflict. Good, I said. I ended the call and stared at the folder. Inside were signatures. Dates. Statements. Lies. They hadn't just disrespected me. They'd committed fraud. Theft. Perjury. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about justice. And I wasn't going to stop until every dollar, every inch of land, and every drop of respect they stole was ripped back from their hands, one legal paper at a time. I waited exactly 10 days before reaching out again. I needed them comfortable. Arrogant. Smug in the belief that I was still the fool, still the broken little brother who needed their crumbs. I sent Jared a text. Hey. Things are getting bad. Can I crash at your place for a bit? He didn't respond right away. But when he did, it came with a twist of the knife. Can't. No space. Try Rachel. I already had. Rachel said she was renovating. Mom told me she was too tired to deal with my drama. Every door slammed. Perfect. The trap was set. A week later, I showed up at a family brunch uninvited. They were all there, Mom, Jared, Rachel, Tom. I wore the same tattered hoodie, same faded jeans. Looked like someone who slept in his car. I even left my watch at home, just to sell the illusion. Jared's eyes scanned me like a TSA agent. What are you doing here, man? I shoved my hands in my pockets. I just wanted to say sorry. For everything. I know I've been hard to deal with. Mom softened. She always loved a little guilt. I'm just tired, I added. And broke. But I'm working on something. That perked Rachel up. Like what? I smiled. Something big. My friend is looking to invest in a franchise. And he's looking for family-backed partners. Tom scoffed. You? Pitching business ideas now? Jared raised an eyebrow. What kind of franchise? I shrugged. Restaurant chain. He's looking to open 5 locations across the state. But he wants people he can trust. People with skin in the game. Mom's voice cracked. And you thought of us? I nodded. You've always been there. It took everything in me not to laugh. Rachel leaned in. How much? 30 grand total. Split between whoever wants in. The returns are almost guaranteed. I watched their eyes glaze over with dollar signs. They didn't ask for documents. Didn't ask for the friend's name. Didn't ask why someone with a failing life was suddenly offering business opportunities. They saw one thing. Money. Jared was the first to bite. If we do this, what do we get? I reached into my bag, pulled out mock contracts I had made. Legalese that sounded real. Real enough for people too arrogant to double-check. Buy in now. Get 25% ROI in the first quarter. Full payout in under a year. Tom whistled. Rachel's hand was already reaching for her purse. And just like that, the vultures took the bait. They never saw the teeth beneath my smile. They never asked what happened to the last person who tried to steal from me. Because they thought I was still desperate. Still stupid. But I was neither. I was about to become their worst investment. Within 72 hours, the money was in my account. Wired from 3 directions. Jared sent $15,000. Rachel and Tom sent $10,000. And my mother, the woman who once claimed she couldn't spare $500 for rent, sent $5,000 from her personal savings account, ironically labeled emergency fund. I stared at the transaction list and laughed. This was the emergency. But not for me. I let 3 days pass. Just enough time to stir their excitement, let them dream of returns, power, status. They were already calling it our new venture. Then came the questions. Tom messaged me. When's the first site visit? I want to meet your investor. Rachel called asking for a presentation deck to show her coworkers. Jared wanted to know if he could invest more to secure a bigger cut. I gave them all the same answer. Next week. I'm flying out to confirm the first location. NDA required before the reveal. Then I vanished. I turned off my phone. Took a trip. Not to scout a franchise, but to sign court documents. I handed everything, audio files, financial records, and proof of the fake will, to my attorney. We filed the lawsuit in silence. Fraud. Inheritance theft. Identity tampering. Emotional abuse. The name of the plaintiff, Rami Elias, trustee of the original estate of Elias Sr. By the time I returned home, the papers had already been served. The fallout began instantly. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. 30 missed calls. Dozens of texts. Jared was threatening. Rachel was sobbing. My mother left a voicemail so emotionally manipulative it could have won an Oscar. But I ignored them all. Instead, I went to the same bank branch where Jared had once opened an account in our father's name, without telling me. I pulled the security footage from 2 years prior. Had it certified. And then I made my final move. I returned the $30,000. Every penny. Through a lawyer. With a single note attached. This was never about money. It was about proof. See you in court. Within hours, Rachel posted a vague story about betrayal. Jared tried to call me out publicly, claiming I'd scammed the family. But the documents spoke louder. Legal discovery would reveal it all. The fake will. The stolen trust. The planned psychiatric betrayal. And the years they spent painting me as the failure, while hiding the fact that I was the rightful heir to everything they'd built their lives on. Their house of lies was crumbling. And I was the one lighting the match. The day the lawsuit became public record, I didn't feel triumph. I felt calm. The kind of calm that comes after a storm has ripped through your soul and you're finally standing in the wreckage, alive, but never the same. I had let them betray me. I had invited it. And I documented every second. The court filing named them all. Jared, Rachel, and my mother as co-conspirators in inheritance fraud, concealment of a legal will, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Each claim backed by undeniable evidence. Audio. Paper trails. Witness statements. Dates. Their laughter, captured in recordings. Their signatures, buried in forged documents. And their motives, clear, cruel, and recorded in their own voices. By the time their lawyers read through the complaint, the media had already picked it up. Lottery winner secretly sues own family after inheritance betrayal. They didn't even know I'd won. Not until now. The shockwave hit hard. Jared tried to spin it. She's unstable, he told reporters. He's always had issues. But then I released the tapes. A select few. Enough to silence him. Enough to make the public ask, who's unstable now? Rachel went quiet. Tom deleted his socials. And my mother? She did what she always did best, played the victim. Said I was brainwashed. That Dad never intended for this. That I was turning on my blood. But I had the documents. The sealed will. The trust papers. The original, untainted truth. And when the judge reviewed the materials, his response was cold and immediate. This court finds sufficient cause to proceed with full discovery and trial. That's when they realized they weren't in a family feud. They were in a war they'd already lost. And just when they thought it couldn't get worse, I filed an emergency motion to remove Jared as executor of the estate, citing fraud, forgery, criminal misconduct. My lawyer handed it in with a binder labeled Exhibit H, audio, plan to declare plaintiff mentally unfit. The judge scheduled the hearing for the following week. And as I walked out of the courthouse that day, past cameras, past flashing bulbs, past all their stunned, panicked faces, I didn't flinch. Because I hadn't just exposed them. I'd turned their own schemes into weapons. They taught me betrayal. And now? Now I was going to teach them what justice really felt like. The courtroom was silent when the judge called my case. Not quiet, silent. The kind of silence that buzzes against your skin and sits like ice in your lungs. The kind of silence that comes before a public execution. Jared stood on the other side, arms folded, jaw set like stone. My mother wore black like it was a funeral. Rachel didn't show. She'd submitted a statement to avoid emotional trauma. I took my seat beside my attorney, a soft-spoken woman named Alina with eyes like steel and a folder filled with wreckage. The judge didn't waste time. This hearing is to determine whether Mr. Jared Elias acted unlawfully in suppressing a legally binding will in the matter of the Elias estate. Mr. Rami Elias, you may proceed. Alina rose and handed over the documents, my father's true will, the one dated months before his death. Signed. Stamped. Notarized. Delivered directly to Monroe's office. And buried in silence. Your Honor, Alina said, her voice cutting through the tension, this document was concealed. What was presented to the court after Mr. Elias Sr.'s passing was a falsified version, constructed using a known associate of the defendant as witness. The judge flipped through the evidence. Do you have corroboration? Alina nodded and played a recording, an audio file from the moment Jared casually told my mother, nobody's gonna check, Ma. He's too messed up to notice. The courtroom gasped. My mother went pale. Jared's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Additionally, Alina added, we have confirmation from Mr. Monroe, the original attorney of record, stating this was the final and valid will submitted to his office prior to Mr. Elias Sr.'s death. The judge turned to Jared. Do you deny this? Jared opened his mouth. Closed it. Then said, I don't remember seeing that version. We were all grieving. The judge didn't blink. Grief doesn't authorize forgery. He turned to me. Mr. Elias, do you wish to be instated as executor in accordance with this will? I stood. Yes, Your Honor. My father trusted me. They buried that trust. The judge nodded once. This court finds grounds for immediate removal of Mr. Jared Elias as executor, effective today. All assets and estate decisions will be placed under the authority of Rami Elias, as originally intended. I exhaled for the first time in hours. Alina squeezed my shoulder. It was done. But it wasn't over. Because this wasn't just about control. This was about exposure. Outside the courthouse, cameras swarmed. Microphones flew toward my face. Why did you sue your family? What made you hide your lottery win? What's next for you? I gave them one line. They took what wasn't theirs. I'm just taking it back. And then I walked right past my mother, right past Jared, and didn't stop until I reached the car. In the rearview mirror, I saw them still standing there. Not as a family. But as people who'd just realized. Their lies didn't buy them power. They bought their own destruction. They thought it was over after the courtroom blow. They thought the judge's decision to remove Jared as executor was the worst of it. They were wrong. Because I hadn't even opened the vault yet. The vault I'd built from every voice memo, every phone call, every dinner table betrayal they didn't know I was recording. 2 days after the ruling, we held a second hearing, this one to establish damages and fraud intent. The courtroom was packed. Local news outlets lined the back row. This was no longer a family matter. It was public humiliation with legal teeth. Alina stood, pressed play on the courtroom speaker system, and let their true voices fill the chamber. He's useless. Can't even hold a job. Rachel. If we file enough paperwork, we can get power of attorney. Jared. Don't feel bad. Rami was always different. Soft. Weak. My mother. The courtroom was silent. Until a gasp came from the back row. The judge leaned forward, lips pursed. You have more? Alina nodded. We also have this conversation. 2 days before Mr. Elias Sr.'s stroke. She hit play again. Jared, you think he'll leave Rami anything? Mom, if he does, we'll handle it. Jared, forge a second version? Mom, exactly. We'll say Rami's unstable. Easy. The silence after that line felt like gravity. I didn't look at my mother. I didn't need to. She was already sinking into herself, the facade crumbling second by second. The judge turned to Jared. You attempted to premeditate the obstruction of a lawful will. Jared tried to speak. We were joking. Perjury isn't a joke, Mr. Elias. Then the judge turned to me. Do you wish to pursue criminal charges? My heart pounded. The room was waiting. My mother looked at me, eyes glassy. No apology. Just desperation. I looked her dead in the eye. Yes, I said. Every charge. Every count. Jared cursed under his breath. Rachel started crying somewhere behind me. But I felt nothing. Because that day, justice wasn't warm. It was cold. Precise. Final. And yet, it still wasn't the last move. Because after the hearing, my attorney handed me a sealed envelope that had arrived unexpectedly. Another piece of evidence. One I hadn't seen. A letter from my father, handwritten. Dated 1 week before he died. It read. If you're reading this, Rami, it means the truth came out. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. I knew they were circling. I left everything to you because you were the only one who never made me feel alone in my own home. You don't owe them anything. But if you can, take the name back. Make it mean something again. I folded the letter with shaking hands. My father hadn't just left me money. He left me a mission. And now that the lies were burned down, it was time to rebuild the truth. The final hearing wasn't about drama. It was about finality. The legal fire that would burn away the lies and expose the bones beneath. I walked into the courtroom with only one document in my hand, my father's true, legally authenticated will. The same one Jared and my mother had tried to bury. The same one they'd committed fraud to erase. This time, there were no theatrics. No recordings. No emotional pleas. Just the raw, brutal truth on paper. The judge reviewed it for 15 minutes in silence, reading every clause, every signature, every date. His eyes narrowed at the notary seal, verified, real, and untouched. He looked up. In light of the evidence presented and the corroborating testimony of the original estate attorney, this court recognizes the will dated March 12 as the sole binding legal testament of Elias Sr. He turned toward Jared and my mother. Your actions were not just negligent, they were willful. This was a conspiracy to subvert a legal document for personal gain. My mother's lips trembled. She tried to speak, but the judge silenced her with a glance. Executor rights shall remain with Mr. Rami Elias. All transfers made under the invalid will are now subject to reversal. I felt something crack open in my chest. Not relief. Not joy. Something deeper. Release. Furthermore, the judge continued, criminal proceedings may move forward, depending on the state prosecutor's review of the fraud claims. Civil penalties will be handled in the next hearing. He banged the gavel once. Court adjourned. That was it. It was official. I owned everything now. Not just by blood, but by law. The businesses. The land. The house. The legacy. I stood slowly and turned to face them. Jared wouldn't look at me. My mother stared at the ground. And still, no apology. No remorse. Only fear. Only shame. Only the weight of knowing they had lost everything they tried to steal. As I walked past them, I said nothing. I didn't gloat. I didn't sneer. I didn't have to. Because silence is the loudest revenge when someone expects you to break. I pushed the courthouse door open, stepped into the sunlight, and felt something I hadn't in years. Power. But not the kind you flash. The kind you own. And I wasn't finished yet. Because now that the will had spoken, it was time to enforce it. They didn't believe it until the notices arrived. Typed. Stamped. Legally flawless. Eviction orders. Jared had been living in the family's second home, one my father bought decades ago as a legacy property. He used it like a trophy, telling his friends he took over the estate after Dad passed. It had a 4-car garage, marble countertops, a wraparound porch. Now? It belonged to me. And I wanted it empty. He called the moment the letter hit his mailbox. Are you serious? He barked into the phone. You're kicking me out? Me? This is my house. No, I said calmly. It was Dad's house. And you stole it. Click. He hung up. The next day, I changed the locks. 3 days later, movers showed up with court clearance. Jared wasn't even there. I heard later he tried to hide in a motel on the other side of town, drinking and ranting about family betrayal. It was poetic. My mother was next. She'd moved into a small cottage property that was once part of our father's farmland. She said she deserved to keep it because of emotional value. I let her keep her pride, until she stepped in front of reporters and said I was a troubled soul trying to rewrite history. So I rewrote the lease instead. 2 weeks later, a moving van sat outside her door while she screamed at the sheriff on duty. I'm his mother. No longer his landlord, the officer replied. She turned and saw me sitting in the car across the street. I didn't wave. Didn't flinch. Just watched. She knew why. She knew exactly what this was. Every time she turned her back when I asked for help. Every time she called me weak. Every time she chose Jared over justice. It all led here. To this moment. Rachel was spared, for now. She'd moved far enough away that none of the property or estate reversals touched her directly. But she didn't escape the fallout. Not even close. Because the press had found the story. They plastered her name next to headlines like "Mother, Son, and Daughter Forge Dead Fathers Will to Cut Out Rightful Heir." Family Fraud, Lottery Winner Sues Siblings in Stunning Legal Takeover. Her work dropped her from a major PR project. Tom's business lost 2 sponsorships. Their friends stopped returning calls. She sent me a message late one night. "Rami, please, can we just talk?" I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to. But because there was nothing left to say. I had offered them love, loyalty, and the benefit of the doubt. They gave me betrayal wrapped in fake smiles and legal manipulation. Now? They had silence. Not the kind you give to punish. The kind you give when you finally learned. Some people don't deserve access to your voice. But the story wasn't done. Because as the dust settled, a new name appeared. A face I didn't recognize. And a knock came at my door at midnight. I thought I'd drained the venom. I thought the worst of the fight was behind me. But you don't spend your whole life being underestimated without learning this. When you burn one bridge, the smoke calls others. The call came from my lawyer first. "There's room for more than just estate recovery," Alina said. "We can go for blood." "Define blood," I replied. "Defamation. Emotional trauma. Obstruction of a rightful heir. Mental distress. Fraud, obviously. You want peace or legacy?" I didn't hesitate. Legacy. We filed a civil suit against all 3, Jared, Rachel, and my mother. $3.4 million in damages. That number wasn't random. It was the exact amount the court estimated they gained, through illegal asset manipulation, stolen rental income, forged property claims, and hush arrangements during the estate concealment. The moment they were served, my inbox erupted. Jared's threats turned manic. "You think you've won? You think this'll stick? You're nothing without Dad." I didn't respond. Rachel tried guilt. "Please, Rami. Don't do this. We're family. You're going to ruin us. You ruined yourselves." My mother tried silence. For a week. Then I received a typed letter, likely penned by someone else but signed in her careful script. "I did what I thought was right. I don't deserve this. I'm still your mother." I tore it in half. Still? Still implies she ever was. The trial was swift. The evidence was overwhelming. The judge barely raised his voice as he delivered the ruling. Full damages awarded to the plaintiff. Court finds sufficient proof of long-term mental and financial manipulation by the defendants. Restitution to be paid in full. It was done. Jared filed for bankruptcy within a month. He sold 2 properties to cover legal costs, one of which used to have my father's name on the title. Rachel and Tom had to move out of their condo. Their accounts were frozen after failing to meet the first restitution payment. My mother? She fled. To her sisters in Arizona, I heard. Too ashamed to face anyone in town. The woman who once threw neighborhood barbecues with her head held high now hid behind closed blinds and a disconnected phone line. I didn't gloat. Didn't post. Didn't celebrate. Because none of this brought my father back. None of it erased the years I spent believing I was the broken one. The dependent. The disappointment. But it did do something else. It cleared the board. It reclaimed my name. It reminded everyone who ever doubted me that I wasn't a burden. I was the backbone. And just when I thought I could breathe again, that knock at midnight came. Sharp. Measured. I opened the door, ready to shut it just as quickly. But I didn't. Because standing there was someone I'd never seen. Young. Maybe 20s. Eyes like mine. And in her trembling hand, a set of old legal documents. "I'm sorry to come like this," she whispered. "But I think I'm your sister." The knock was soft, almost apologetic. I checked the time, 12:04 a.m. Nobody knocks at midnight with good news. I pulled open the door, ready to curse out some reporter or another shady process server. But instead, I froze. She stood there, no older than 24. Wide brown eyes. Hair pulled into a braid. And in her shaking hands, a folder stuffed with old documents, some yellowed with time. She smiled nervously. "Are you Rami?" "Yes," I said, instantly on guard. She bit her lip. "I'm sorry. This is going to sound insane. But I think I'm your sister." The world tilted. She handed me the folder. Birth certificates. DNA reports. Old photographs. Letters, handwritten. One from my father. It read, "To Maya, I'm sorry I couldn't be the father you needed in public. But one day, when everything calms, find Rami. He's the only one I trust. Maya." She stepped inside. Over tea, she explained the truth. Our father had another family before ours. A short, painful marriage with a woman who walked away and took Maya with her. No one knew, because Dad was ashamed of how it ended, and my mother never allowed it to be discussed. He sent money every month. Kept tabs on Maya's life. But never introduced her to the rest of us. Until now. I sat in silence, stunned. Another sibling. Another person cut out by the people who called themselves family. "I only found this after he died," she said. "My mom gave it to me. Said I should wait until I was older. But when I saw your name in the papers, I knew." She looked up, eyes watery. "You're not the only one he protected." I didn't know what to feel. Shock. Rage. Hope. But above all, I felt the weight of something bigger than revenge or justice. Legacy. Dad hadn't just left me the estate. He'd left me the truth. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the woman who looked like me, sounded like me, carried the same pain in her eyes. And I knew one thing for certain. My story wasn't over. It was just beginning, again. It's strange how winning millions didn't change me. But betrayal did. I started this journey buried under years of shame. Mocked. Dismissed. Forgotten by the people who should have lifted me up. They looked at me and saw failure, because I didn't lie like they did, steal like they did, or play the role they wrote for me. But my father saw something else. And he left me the one thing they could never fake. His trust. Now, the estate is mine. The land. The legacy. The name. But more importantly, I finally know who I am. I'm not their burden. I'm not their scapegoat. I'm the son they tried to erase, and failed. I honored my father's final request. I restored what was stolen. I even met the sister they hid from me, and together we'd begun rebuilding something real, something honest. Not just family. Truth. And the ones who called me weak? They sit in silence now. Bankrupt. Estranged. Erased from the very legacy they tried to steal. And I'm not bitter. I'm not angry anymore. Because I didn't just win money. I won clarity. I won peace. And sometimes, that's the greatest revenge of all. Did this story shake you? Have you ever seen family change because of money? Backhand index pointing down. Tell your story in the comments. Bell and make sure to subscribe for the next one. You don't want to miss what's coming.